This video presents a mock trial examining the historic Roe v. Wade case, which addressed the legality of abortion in the United States. Roe v. Wade in 1973 was a federal civil rights challenge to Texas's near-total criminal ban on abortion. Jane Roe, an unmarried pregnant woman, argued the statute violated her constitutional right to privacy. The Texas law only allowed abortion to save the mother's life. Roe could not get a legal abortion in Texas and lacked funds to travel. Two physicians also joined the suit against defendant Henry Wade, the Dallas County District Attorney. Roe filed suit in federal district court. The court ruled in her favor, declaring the Texas law unconstitutional, but refused to issue an injunction. Roe then appealed directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. The trial court had to decide if the Constitution protects a right to privacy broad enough to include abortion, whether the Texas statute violated that right, and if the state had a compelling interest to regulate. Roe's theory argued the Texas ban violated the 14th Amendment's right to privacy. The decision to terminate a pregnancy is a fundamental personal choice, and the law forced women into unsafe procedures. The state of Texas, represented by Henry Wade, argued they had a legitimate interest in protecting prenatal life. They maintained the Constitution did not explicitly guarantee a right to abortion, and the legislature had the authority to regulate. Jane Roe was a pseudonym used to protect the plaintiff's identity, Norma McCorvey. She sought to challenge Texas's restrictive abortion laws, leading to the landmark Supreme Court decision in 1973. Henry Wade was the defendant, serving as the district attorney for Dallas County and responsible for enforcing the anti-abortion laws. He also served as the DA in Dallas during the JFK investigation. This image highlights Henry Wade, the district attorney of Dallas, Texas, and the named defendant in the case. Wade's core arguments focused on the state's compelling interest in protecting potential life, historical precedent, legislative power, and defining fetal viability as a legal line-drawing tool. Dr. Harold Jennings, a pediatrician, argued the sanctity of life, emphasizing that life begins at conception. Chief Deputy DA Lynn Cortez explained the challenges of enforcing the statutes and the demand for protecting unborn children. Mrs. Ruth Whitfield, a community matriarch, offered the moral voice of Dallas. Dr. Charles Hargrove, a legal medical expert, discussed fetal viability, arguing the state's interest becomes compelling once the fetus can survive outside the womb. Dr. Hargrove, a medical expert for Henry Wade, focused his testimony on defining the point of fetal viability in 1970 for the court's legal considerations. Dr. Hargrove's testimony helped establish viability as a legal line-drawing tool, which was central to the state's potential life argument. Lynn Cortez, the chief deputy district attorney, testified as a key witness for Henry Wade. Her testimony addressed the community's moral values and supported the constitutionality of the Texas law. Dr. Jennings, a prominent Texas pediatrician and a medical witness for Jane Roe, emphasized the safety of legal abortion, helping to counter arguments against the procedure. This visual represents Jane Roe's main arguments and witnesses in the trial-level case. Roe's core arguments included the constitutional right to privacy, the public health harm caused by criminalizing abortion, equal protection against gender discrimination, and the overbreadth of the Texas statute. This scene emphasizes the core arguments and witnesses representing Jane Roe's side of the case. This is a blank slide, providing a brief pause. This is another blank slide, allowing for a transitional moment. Dr. Marquez, an expert OB/GYN and physician plaintiff, testified about the medical harms of criminalized abortion and the risks of unsafe, illegal procedures, representing the public health interest. Miriam Alvarez, a Texas college student who sought an abortion, testified about the statute's harmful impact, representing the women directly affected by the law. Pastor Samuel Whitaker, a Progressive Methodist pastor, provided affidavit testimony, openly supporting Roe's legal challenge based on his moral conviction for abortion access. Professor Lila Patel, a specialist in constitutional law, analyzes the legal reasoning behind substantive due process and privacy rights crucial to the case. The district court ruled for Jane Roe in 1970, declaring the Texas anti-abortion law unconstitutional for violating the Ninth Amendment. This ruling was appealed to the Supreme Court. The district court's decision, which refused to enjoin enforcement, set up the Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled the right to privacy encompasses abortion, and Texas's near-total ban was unconstitutional. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals heard the appeal and affirmed the district court's decision, upholding the ruling that the Texas law was unconstitutional before it went directly to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard arguments twice, first in December 1971 and again in October 1972, before finally issuing its landmark decision in January 1973. Roe's attorneys argued the Texas law violated privacy rights and fundamental liberty guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. They asserted a woman's right to decide whether to continue her pregnancy. Wade's attorneys argued for the protection of fetal life, asserting the state's compelling interest in protecting potential life and maintaining that the right to privacy did not include abortion. The constitutional basis for the Roe decision was the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, which was found to protect the right to privacy, including a woman's decision regarding her pregnancy. The right to privacy, though not explicitly enumerated, was found by the Supreme Court to be protected under the 14th Amendment, extending to fundamental decisions regarding family and bodily autonomy. The 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling established a woman's right to an abortion. It utilized the trimester framework, allowing states to only fully ban abortions after viability. The trimester framework balanced competing state and individual rights. The permissibility of regulation depended on the stage of pregnancy, with state interests growing stronger nearing the third trimester. Justice Harry Blackmun authored the majority opinion, with 7 justices concurring. The opinion established the trimester framework and recognized the constitutional right to terminate a pregnancy. Justices White and Rehnquist filed dissents. They argued against the newly found right to privacy concerning abortion, believing the issue should be left to the states, and disagreed with the trimester framework. The Roe v. Wade ruling immediately invalidated many restrictive state abortion laws. It established a woman's fundamental right to choose, profoundly impacting American political and social life and increasing polarization. This concludes the overview of the Roe v. Wade case and the foundational arguments that led to the landmark Supreme Court decision.